All right, I got 9 o'clock. We'll call the February 16th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. I understand we have a few students here, so welcome. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around. Our meeting will be relatively short. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We do have a break scheduled here too, so if you feel free to approach any of us, or if you have any questions during the meeting, we'll try to answer them for you. So thank you for coming and showing your interest. We appreciate it. Agenda review. Bob, we have anything to add to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move the agenda.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner reports. I'll start with you, Commissioner Stuhnberg.
All right. Well, the day after our last board meeting, we had a department head meeting. And then on February 9th, a few of us made the diversity dinner, which was down at the Civic Center. That was a very nice event. The Greater Mankato Diversity Council have their annual dinner that they put on, and they do their awards. Later on that afternoon, I attended a Highway 169 construction open house, which was out at the Happy Chef, and in response to the 7-month construction period on Highway 169 between here and St. Peter. It's going to cause a lot of headaches for a lot of people over that time period, but I really believe that when it's done with, we're going to really have a nice road, and we don't have to worry about the 100-year floods that happen every 5 years. So then after that, I attended the business after hours. I think, let's see, Mark, you were there, weren't you, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, at the Mankato Brewing in North Mankato, and that was put on by Pantheon Computers. On February 10th, I had a Habitat for Humanity Executive Board meeting. And on February 11th, I did a NACO Central Region call-in. I believe Drew was in that call-in also. And then we had a mayors and clerks meeting later on that evening over in Lake Crystal, Crystal Seasons. On February 12th, I had an AMC Transportation Working Group teleconference. There's folks that were picked out of AMC to get together and try to get our heads wrapped around the transportation bill this year and what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing that every 2 weeks. First of all, they came out and said we were just going to have a call-in, but now people really like the teleconference idea. The idea is to be able to see people's faces when you're talking to them. So, and it works pretty well. Then on February 13th, my wife and I attended the Dogs in the Library. They were down at the Blue Earth County Library, and all the different breeds were down there. And that, so I had kind of a short thing this time, so I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Campbell.
Sure. Our last meeting, of course, was Tuesday, February 2nd. And if you remember, we got about 8 inches of snow that day, or what did we get? It was quite
Yeah,
a
it
bit.
came down pretty good.
It came down good. On the third Wednesday, department head meeting, we were all there, and then on, let's see, I had a quick, short meeting with Bob that same day. On February 4th, which was Thursday, my wife and I had kind of gotten a quick impulse a week or so earlier, and we took off for Mexico. So we went down to Cabo San Lucas, which is the very tip of the Baja Peninsula. And during our time there, we decided to spend some time more inland where the people live and look at the infrastructure, see what they do there. And I'll tell you, that hurricane they had a couple of years ago, there's many, many buildings without roofs. Lots of infrastructure. It's not cleaned up after. I mean, it's amazing. They just don't have the infrastructure that we have, or that the states have. And it's kind of a sad thing to see, but the people seem happy and everything was going good. We visited Casa Hogar, which is a orphanage. that is a nonprofit, no government input at all. And it was interesting to see that. It was for boys, and so it was nice to visit there. On the 10th, I went to the Refugee Immigrant Consortium meeting. They hold them down at the Public Safety Center in that community room. Well, that's a nice room, I'll tell you. And there was probably 75 people there. They were talking about encouraging, they had panels of people talking about education, and when you get to America, how hard it is to figure out how to get secondary education to go on to, let's say, a 2-year or a 4-year college, and all the different barriers they face sometimes, trying to survive and trying to get their kids to go to school. And then February 11th, as Vance indicated, the Central Regional call-in, and I had mentioned on that call-in about the Social Security COLA, asking that maybe we repeal that or encourage the government to repeal the formula for determining people who are disabled and on Social Security, who have fixed incomes, that it might be important that they revisit that formula and sort of organize it, because they're using gasoline as part of the formula, and that's a big reason why nobody that's on Social Security received a COLA this year. And so I just spoke to that a little bit. And then the InterGov Youth Asset Committee, which is known also as Youth Voice in Government. We only meet, about 2 times a year. And we had a real good discussion. And we're going to reorganize how we present the materials. And so we've got a good plan set forth. And what this is for anybody, and a lot of them are college positions too, if they would like. High school, college youth that are interested in serving on committees for the county. It could be a mental health services type committee. It could be human services. We've got one in environmental services with recycling, I believe. We've got a correctional one here in the county, right? And then the city has a few of them, have created positions, and most of them get per diems, to make sure that their voice is heard in government, and also to get them to understand how government operates. And so it's really a good deal. If you know anybody, Nicollet County participates, and North Mankato participates in this too, and the school district. So it's really it's a wonderful thing. I'll just mention, which I mentioned at Mayors and Clerks at Region 9, just recently developed two youth commissioner positions to serve on the full commission with Region 9. So there's a few things they won't be able to vote on because there's some judicial matters that, because of their age, might not be able to vote on. But as I mentioned, Mayors and Clerks, Mike Roll, boy, I was impressed with his presentation, weren't you guys? I mean,
You're doing great things over there.
isn't that something? That's
Yeah.
your district.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they got that grant for $374,000. I don't remember where the grant came from, but it was.
Oh, I can't remember where it came
Yeah.
from either, but it's a great thing.
It's
for
a
'em.
big
Yeah.
thing. They're gonna be doing some work on, some conservation projects on Ditch 56. And Mike Roll is just really committed to what's called the Lake Crystal, is it just the Lake Crystal project?
Crystal Water.
Didn't he get some,
Crystal Waters
wasn't that
project.
legacy? Some legacy?
It could have been some legacy
There's some
dollars.
legacy funds.
I wouldn't doubt
I
it.
can't remember where it came
Yeah.
from, but it was a sizable grant.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just wonderful to hear about that. Friday was Lincoln's birthday, and I attended the Renewable Energy Task Force. Kathy Sharon, our senator, came to that meeting. There was actually a lot of people at that meeting. We had a gentleman by the name of Joe Sullivan presenting, and what a guy, boy. He knows a lot of stuff about just basically energy, and he works for the Minnesota Center for Energy and Environment, or CEE. And after listening to his presentation, it made me think about maybe we need to do another energy audit of all of our buildings. He said they went through and did an energy audit on a institutional setting. After 2 years or 3 years of doing one, and found 17% savings, by doing a few things. And so it's amazing what you can do to save, even if you just had one not too long ago. You might have overlooked some things. So anyway, that's it. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chair.
Commissioner Purvis?
Okay, on the 3rd, we had the department heads meeting. Then on the 4th, Kip and I were at the SWCD monthly meeting, so that was pretty much business as usual there. On the 8th, I stopped and visited with the folks at Crystal Seasons in Lake Crystal and gave them a briefing of what's going on in county government. And then, of course, the Diversity Council luncheon that we were at. Then Kip and I on the 11th were at the drainage seminar in St. Cloud. Very, very interesting, very informative. Talked a lot about drainage issues and the buffer laws and stuff, so excellent learning opportunity there. And of course, mayors and clerks, Drew, you pretty much filled everybody in on that. Mike Rowe is incredible. He's got a nice group together there.
Yeah, it really does.
And then yesterday, I met with a representative from the Citizens Climate Lobby, talking about energy issues, so.
Is that the carbon tax one?
Mhm.
It is?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
wasn't sure.
So, and that's my report.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner People?
Okay, yep, with the February 3rd Department Heads meeting, we were all at there, most of us. And then February 4th at Thursday had a Maple, Mankato Area Planning Organization, Transportation meeting. And then we did, we put out the 30-day response to our recent TIP, improvement, transportation improvement plan that we got, the long-term plan. So everybody can take a look at it and respond 30 days. And then we had February 8th, and Vance already talked about that. Yeah, I was at the after hours for Greater Mankato Growth. And then on the 10th of February, had MICA meeting. Kip and I were at that. And got a rundown of the legislative, a lot of legislative things going on. Interesting to note that, like there's with MICA and with the social services directors, they're meeting. Phil and Angie Youngerberg and Phil Clausen are very much involved with things with the modernization of the computers, the necessary things with the state human services, dealing with MNsure and the Medicaid programs at the county we have to deal with. So they're big on that, and kind of big kudos because then Josh Milo does work with the task force on prison population. And don't forget yours truly, Will Purvis, with the court security. See, these names all came up at our MICA. So
For it being a bunch of Twin Cities counties,
Yeah.
Blue Earth County is very involved in it,
Yep.
and we lead a lot of stuff in our, engineering.
That's
I
true,
would-
isn't it?
yeah, Al's
And
involved.
ACO, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for not being a metropolitan county,
Yep,
we
yeah,
are.
we're involved almost more than all the other ones, yep. Excuse me, and then February 11th, we did have mayors and clerks, and that was one of the best programs I've seen in a long time there, so. That really concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I only have a couple things to add to that. We have ahead planning and zoning, which we'll see that in a few minutes here. It's just one item with our solar ordinance, amendment to our ordinance. SWCD was already mentioned. The only thing I want to add to that is that they are very appreciative of Will and I and our support from Blue Earth County. They mention that every time we come, how much they appreciate our support. And I think they're doing a great job, and they just work so well with environmental services. So just wanted to pass that along.
And they work well, work well with the Crystal Waters project
Oh,
too.
okay.
They've been a good force with that project also.
Good. They do a good job for us, so. Mark mentioned MICA, and Will did mention the ditch meetings. And yeah, for an all-day seminar, it was very interesting. There's still a lot of questions about the buffer law. Now the governor has said that private ditches inside watersheds will not be buffered, but it's still in the law, so we'll have to see how that shakes out at the end. So that was probably the most interesting thing I took away from that conversation. And then tomorrow morning, I just want to mention we have before hours at MVAC if anybody's available. It's 7:30 to 9, I think. So if you're available, I plan on attending, and
I figured I'd see you down there.
yeah, you figured that. So that's all I really have today for my reports. So with that, we will move on to administrative services with Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, first item is the county board minutes for February 2nd.
Do you have a motion to accept the?
Move. So moved.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Bills.
I'll move the bills.
Second?
I got a first and a second. Discussion? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay. On the first week of the bills, the DHS Health, Medical, Psychological for $9,736. I'm just curious what that kind of stuff goes for.
That would be some nursing services out of our psychiatric hub. Those employees are deployed from the state hospital, and so we're billed for their salaries.
Okay. And that's part of our budgeting for that?
Right, it's
That
part of a
facility?
shared service agreement that we
Oh, it
have
is?
with the
Okay.
state.
I wasn't sure it was over and above, and I didn't know if that was, we were short or there was something going
No,
on.
that would be just part of that
Okay.
arrangement we have.
I noticed then later on, an even amount of $4,000, Mental Health Results LLC, Health, Medical, and Psychological Services.
That's a psychotherapist that we have a private contract with in our mental health center. So that's their business name, but it's an individual.
Right here with the government center?
Yes.
Okay. And then, the Three Rivers Community Action, other fees for $3,621. Just curious what it was. Are they still even around? Yes, I didn't know, unless they changed their name.
They're actually over in the Rochester area. It's part of the supportive housing program. That particular payment is for a continuum of care application fee for some HUD funding.
Okay. And then on the second week for the bills, I had Alliance Health Services, again, health, medical, psychological for $19,000.
And that's, again, part of that same psychiatric hub nursing services. We moved to an employer of record with Alliance for some of
Wow.
the staff there.
Okay. Bornicke Construction Buildings and Improvements for $40,778.
That is part of the landfill building
Oh, okay.
construction.
And then the last one, but not least, News Truck Group. And that was a large 126,000 something.
That
Must
is
be a
a
highway.
new truck in the highway department.
Oh, it is. I'm sure that must have been approved already then.
It's part of the capital budgeting. We did trade in a unit.
Okay. That's all I've got on the bills.
Okay, any other questions on the bills?
I just have one quick on the first week. I'm trying to recall. It was Brunton Architects, about almost 22,000.
Is that in the second week?
It's the first week.
First week. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
The 28.
That is some plans for the new construction down at our Vernon Center shop
Oh,
for the
okay.
Public Works building down there.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
They got all mine.
Okay. I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Human Resources.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we do have a few action items this morning. First two are authorization for the county board chairperson and the county administrator to sign agreements with the American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees. This is our ASME union that employs roughly half of our union employees. Both the Human Services and the Courthouse bargaining units, we have reached agreement with those unions for calendar years 2016 and 2017. And so we're bringing those agreements forward for county board consideration this morning. The other action item is an authorization to initiate recruitment for a part-time library clerk. You'll see indicated at a .25 FTE. This is actually a conversion of a contracted position to a county employee position. We've actually had that contracted position involved with the library system since 1984. But that's contracted through MRCI, and they're indicating that they would like to terminate the employer of record arrangement, and so we would like to maintain the employment for that particular individual and convert that position to a Blue Earth County part-time position. So I bring those items forward for the board's consideration and certainly can answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Bob. So we'll do action item A for the Human Services ASME contract.
Move to approve.
Got a first, I got a second, discussion?
That's it.
A couple questions for Bob. I'm just wondering if you could summarize any highlight, I should say, anything in the Human Services ASME contract that would be interesting of note, or, you know, things like any salary increases that they have agreed to, and if there's any other requests or anything we have to change.
There were salary adjustments that were agreed to. That includes a general wage adjustment of 2.5% each year for the 2 years of the contract. Beyond that, there were some additional compensatory time that was provided to primarily social workers who get called out after hours. We increased kind of the limit for that compensatory bank. And then we did at a point in the progression of tenure for those employees over 25 years of service, we did authorize some additional vacation time, the equivalent of about 3 days of additional vacation time for employees that have exceeded 25 years of service. So those were the primary major items as a part of that agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Any other questions, Drew?
No, just at the end, at some point, I'd like to hear what both the contracts might, what it's gonna cost us about, you know, total. But that's fine. It's different, that's a different issue.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'd just like to commend our team for negotiating this and the staff that help negotiate this. It takes a lot of time and energy, so I appreciate all them working hard on it. With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item B, courthouse.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a first and second. Any other questions or comments?
It's the same thing.
Same contract.
You know, because we negotiate these agreements together, what I described for the Human Services agreement is pretty much the same for the courthouse unit as well.
Except they don't have.
They're negotiated at the same
Human
time. as the
services.
different contracts, yeah.
Oh, okay. So both business agents are there.
It's one business agent, so the staff are together with the one agent, and our negotiating team then meets with them collectively.
Oh, okay.
With these two, what's the percentage of the employees for Blue Earth County that are covered with these two?
Quite a few.
It's in the neighborhood of 50%.
So this is the largest contract we have
Absolutely.
for all of Blue Earth County.
Right.
And to reiterate what Drew said earlier, what's this costing us? What's these two contracts costing Blue Earth County, the additional fees?
Well, I don't have the number for just these bargaining groups. I can give you a sense of the overall.
Overall.
If these agreements get extended to other bargaining units as well, but that's obviously part of a negotiation process. But on our total wages, this would be about a $700,000 increase annually.
Well, there's a pretty good likelihood that the rest of the union groups won't take less than what these two union groups do.
Right, and for 2016, we already have some pre-existing contracts that have
Right.
been agreed to at that same wage scale.
But it's huge to get these two out of the way.
It certainly feels good from a negotiating standpoint, I can tell you
And
that.
I can reiterate what Kip said earlier, thank you very much. I've been through union negotiations before, and can be really trying for both sides. So thanks for everybody involved, from both sides,
Yeah.
to work out an agreement and come to a compromise and sign this. But thank you very much.
We had about 18 open issues when we started, and we settled on about half of those, so
Wonderful.
truly was a compromise.
I
Well,
think it might be more complex in a couple of years. Who knows?
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. I know that when I started as commissioner 6 years ago or so, I remember the overall cost to the county was under $500,000. And now it's approaching $750,000, just, the 2.5% increase each time for all the employees. We've added employees, all their wages have gone up. And so incrementally, it's something that has to be budgeted, and, it's good to talk about it so that people know that that's what happens in government, that if we give these increases every year, this is an expense, a new expense to the county.
Of course, it'll vary. The increases do vary.
Pardon?
The increases do vary, so they're not like 2.5 every year. Like that.
No, sometimes they might even be 2%.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Or
it'd be
something like
lower.
that, or-
Yeah.
All right, well, I got a motion and a second. We'll move on. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Authorization to new recruitment for the library clerk.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
This is a very important one to me because this has to do with employees from MRCI. Folks understand that I have a son that works through MRCI. I understand how this system works, and I'm just really proud of the county to be able to take this up and hire this person, special needs, to continue the work they do.
Good program.
Good one.
I got a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
In terms of informational items, so we have a list here of things that have happened. We did have a promotion of Joshua Downey to the parks supervisor, and so as a result of that promotion, we've initiated recruitment for a medium equipment operator. We did have a resignation of a transport officer as well as a custody officer, and so we've initiated the recruitment for the custody officer. We also have completed filling a position in the county attorney's office. We have two things on the second page that are tied together: the voluntary demotion of a heavy equipment operator to a medium equipment operator with a salary adjustment that's indicated there. And then, as a part of our collective bargaining agreement, we have a provision in the Public Works agreement that allows a person that has moved to a different position to revert back to their former position. And so we have had a equipment operator indicate their desire to move back to their previous position within the time frame that's allowed as part of the collective bargaining agreement. So Craig Bowman will be returning to a heavy equipment operator, and we've adjusted his salary accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to, we're gonna skip a couple of the administrative services, and we're gonna go down to our 925 with medical examiner's contract. I'm assuming Mr. Mauer. Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
Morning, Mike.
Morning.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. It's been a little busy, so. What we're asking the board to do is to move from what we currently have as a county coroner to a medical examiner. About a year ago, Mayo of Mankato came to our attention with Dr. Gremmel to look at a medical examiner service that they provided through the Mayo system. At that point, we got involved, the county attorney was involved. We met with all of our groups, and then we also met with Ramsey County, who currently provides a medical examiner service. In negotiations with the two, the medical examiner service with Ramsey County would be the most cost beneficial program with Dr. McGee's office. And Dr. McGee, we've been using him since we couldn't even, for a long time, to do our criminal investigations, or our autopsies for criminal investigations. Dr. Gremmel has done a fantastic job for our office as a county coroner. We couldn't ask for any more. It's just that as things have evolved through time, we are in a greater need for the medical examiner portion of this. Dr. Gremmel doesn't have the criteria to be a medical examiner. He has the criteria to be a coroner, and Dr. McGee's office does. From the emergency management standpoint, Dr. McGee's office will aid us and assist us in our mass fatalities planning, reviewing our mass fatalities planning, and has a lot more resources for mass fatalities if we are so indulged to have something like that. Again, this was a long-term plan that we looked at with the county attorney's offices, our private vendors, our mortuary services, and through the innovations of different chemicals that are now out there that are harder to detect when we see these deaths in the field, the medical examiner services provides us that enhancements that we need to move forward. So we're asking that you agree to move forward in that.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Okay.
Got a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I did have
Sure.
a question for that, more, not as educated on all this. So what are some of the differences, and I'm gathering that between a county coroner and a medical
A
examination?
county
Is it
coroner-
medical more comprehensive?
Yeah, a medical examiner acts as like a detective in a medical, for an autopsy. A coroner can provide the cause of death. The medical examiner will research and be almost like a forensic detective to determine some of the different causes of death. We're getting some really strange causes of death that are happening throughout with some really unique chemicals that are coming out that are really hard to detect. And their services that they provide to the medical examiner has the ability to locate and finite some of these things that are happening in these strange cases that sometimes the county coroner doesn't have. So we're sending more and more and more up to the medical examiner's offices, to Dr. McGee. So what this will provide us is enhanced training for the officers on scene, plus that initial flow through up to his office that we currently go through the coroner and then get the approval from the coroner to go to the medical examiner. This streamlines our services as we provide what we need to provide for the public.
And you mentioned most cost effective. Is that because sometimes the county coroner does his job, and then if there's something that seems a little unusual, it goes on then to the medical examiner, it even costs us more?
Well,
Is
the
that why?
county, obviously the coroner is the most reasonably priced, but if you're moving to the medical examiner, Dr. McGee's office in Ramsey County was more cost effective than the Mayo System Medical Examiner's
Oh, I see.
office out of Rochester.
Because it is gonna be a price tag for this too.
The price tag invariably isn't much different than what we're getting currently. However, where you'll see is usually with the medical examiner's office, there will be more autopsies conducted in different cases because the criteria becomes more finite for the officers on these calls that we relate to. And I'm talking about the death scenes that officers get called to.
Okay.
We will have enhanced criteria on our, that's trained to us by Dr. McGee's office, which may in turn create more autopsies based on what we're finding at the scene.
Oh,
So they're able to send someone down rather quickly?
A lot of, they won't actually send somebody out. We haven't had, since Dr. Sanford left in, Willie, help me.
In the last century.
Even I knew that, yeah.
We've really not had the coroners come to the scene. That's not been a practice because it's not practical any longer. But what we're trying to do is enhance our investigators and our deputies' abilities at the scene.
but they come-
And then we will have phone-to-phone conversation with them. And now with the electronics, a lot of times we can even do electronic communication if we have to.
Do they eventually get there, though? I mean, don't they, like for autopsy or anything?
We send them directly
Oh,
up
okay.
to their office.
I see.
Right now, with the
Okay.
criteria we're under through the coroner's office, we have to go with them up. We have a deputy that rides up under the medical examiner. We have a tagging procedure. It'll enhance our ability to send without sending someone up with the actual body. And so there's some conveniences that are engaged in this also.
There'll be some training opportunities for our staff.
Yes.
That go along with this.
Yep.
That's huge.
Both from the criminal side and from the emergency management
Yeah,
side.
great.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But now, if you handle it, let's say you're looking at somebody that's older, let's say 75, 80 years old or whatever, and they die in their home, will it still be handled the same way it was before, or will this be a new procedure for that too? I didn't know if that's gonna change.
A lot of this has to do with, Drew, is that if an officer responds to the scene, some of these in hospice care and some of that, officers never even get called to the
No,
scene. So
yeah.
those will be handled relatively the same way by the mortuary themselves. But yeah, the criteria as it's outlined, in a sense, is almost like a checklist, and that will be part of the checklist in the phone conversation we'll be having with Dr. McGee's office. Those will be very similar in nature to what they were. It's more of these, an athlete dies on the basketball field in the St. Clair High School, and, you know, those, the more, we're getting more and more strange cases. Not, that hasn't happened, I'm just trying
No,
to
you're
give an
right.
example
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're seeing in more and more communities, these strange, unusual deaths and what they tie to.
Yeah. So the normal deaths, or whatever we don't call normal deaths, the procedures will be pretty much the way they've been. I mean, they don't all have to be referred through the medical examiner's office then. do
It's
they?
the same way through phone communication like we currently do.
Okay.
Yeah, they would be similar in nature.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mike. I got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks very much,
Thanks
Mike.
a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
Environmental Services. George and his staff. Good morning.
Morning.
We have one item to discuss today. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 04-16 is a request from Blue Earth County to amend Chapter 14 and Chapter 24 of the Blue Earth County Code of Ordinances. The amendment to the Shoreland Ordinance will include the addition of a definition related to a small solar energy system and to include small solar energy systems as defined by the ordinance as a permitted accessory use within the Shoreland Overlay District. The amendments to Chapter 24 will include the addition of definitions and updates to the solar energy standards section. The amendment will update the applicable zoning districts where solar energy systems are listed as either permitted or conditional uses. Mr. Stubbs presented the staff report. There was no public comment. The general discussion by the Planning Commission involved the location and design of small solar energy systems as defined by the ordinance. The Commission was advised that ground-mounted and pole-mounted small solar energy systems as defined by the current ordinance and the ordinance as proposed are not allowed in the Shoreland zoning district. The Planning Commission and staff agreed that the ordinance at less than 1 year has functioned fairly well, and the proposed amendment is to address some of the issues and questions that have been observed within the 4 projects presented to the Planning Commission and County Board up to this point. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of the request to the County Board, and the board action is the resolution.
Thank you, Aaron. This is a public meeting, so anyone wishing to comment on PC 04-16 Blue Earth County, please come to the podium and state your name and address. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on PC 04-16, please come to the podium. And last chance for anyone who'd like to comment on PC 04-16, please come to the podium. See no public comment, I'll close the public comment of the portion of this meeting and bring it back to the county board.
Move to approve.
Got a first and a second. Discussion? I would just make it, oh, go ahead, Drew.
Well, you can go ahead, but I do have some questions about it.
Go ahead.
So, okay. You know, there's a lot of wording in here, you know, about it, and sometimes it gets a little confusing, to me at least anyway. And so I was just wondering if you could clarify the use of a small, because the reason I went through my mind, I was trying to get this out so you can understand me, is that in our county, it's very difficult to even get a little sign put up along a road or somewhere if you have a personal business, or if you get, you know, there's a lot of red tape. Sometimes it's not even allowed. And now all of a sudden, we're allowing a 20-foot pole with a big, huge a big square solar collector on it that could be, let's say, next to a cabin, or is that my understanding? So that your neighbor who has a cabin might see a 20-foot pole with a big solar array board on there of some sort? I'm just trying to get it in my head, because that's what I got out of this after I read it. And maybe I'm,
Sure. So, just to clarify,
Okay.
that pole-mounted solar is not allowed.
It's
in the
not
show.
allowed.
No, it never was. It's not
Okay.
changed.
I thought
in this.
that's the part we were trying to address, and I got confused
no.
in there.
And that was an issue that came up at
Right.
the planning commission thought the same thing.
Okay.
So we didn't, it's
So it's not
exactly
just
as
me.
it was previously, nuh-uh.
Okay. So the pole mounted is not allowed.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Neither is ground mounted in shoreline.
Okay,
It's gotta be attached to a stationary structure.
okay. That helps me tremendously.
I hope you'll sleep better now, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't
And
have
there was a
time.
lot of discussion around that, because the very
Yeah.
issue is, and again, shoreline is 1,000 feet away. Is that what?
For lakes and
For
300
lakes.
feet to
So-
rivers. and
So that's where
streams.
we were making this ordinance, that's where I had the issue with, that 1,000 feet's a long ways away from the lake, and you could be getting into some agricultural area, and so nothing is allowed in that area. And so this same conversation came up again. It is protecting the shoreline, which I think within 300 feet
Yeah.
makes sense, but we did have some discussion about that outlaying area, and we're
Oh.
gonna leave it just the way it is for now, and just see what comes of it. So,
Okay.
again, it's new, so we just have to keep
No, I know.
keep it fluid, but we had
And it-
good discussion on it about the same item you're referring to.
Yeah, and the reason it came up too in my mind was I was thinking about, let's just say, and I like the idea of people going solar and trying to get off the grid and do whatever we can do to help reduce the demand. But I started thinking about our beautiful river bluffs that we have, you know, and we've got, it's called the Canoe Waterway or whatever in the Blue Earth River Valley, and it's been designated by the state legislation. And I was just thinking, imagine a bunch of 20-foot poles, I thought, along the bluffs with these, you know what I mean, 300 feet, just past 300 feet, and you'd see these big things along our beautiful scenic riverway. You know,
And
just-
some people would consider that beautiful.
No, really.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but
You know,
I
that's-
think your concern
That's your
is
whole
addressed.
idea with what's good looking, what's
Yeah.
not good looking. To
All
me,
to be-
when I see solar panels, it's just positive to me that people are actually
I agree with
using the sun and stuff instead of using fossil fuels. So when I see that kind of stuff, I don't have that same view as you do. Going, you know, if I go down the river in my kayak and I see something like that, I would say, hey, there's a person that really has got their head on straight and understands that solar energy is what's needed instead of using fossil fuels.
Can they camouflage it?
That's good to know, Vance.
So I think we did cover that, though, because there is a member on the board that lives on the lake that is very concerned about the shoreline and just the aesthetics of it. So
Yeah.
it's covered.
Okay.
Any other
Good.
questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2016-17 feedlot work plan.
Thank you,
Michael?
Mr. Chairman.
Chris, I'm sorry, Chris.
So as many of you, I'm sure remember, Blue Earth County is required by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to put together a delegation agreement and work plan that just describes the county's, the goals, strategies, goals for administration, implementation, a lot of different areas of the feedlot program. So this agreement, in short, basically just creates the minimum program requirements that the county is required to maintain for the next 2 years. Some areas that working through this report that I thought you may take notice of would be the minimum inspection goal for the year, which is 7% of all MPCA registered feedlots in the county. So we have 363 feedlot sites. So we will be required to inspect 26 of these in 2016, and that will most likely remain the same in 2017. If we have, I think it's 20 more feedlots, then it would go up to 27 feedlots inspections. This number is a lot lower than what our goal is to inspect. We try to inspect all of our sites on a 4-year basis. So we'll exceed that 26 inspections. But other areas to take note of in this report are new feedlot sites, inspecting those and making sure they're compliant, conducting level 2 land application inspections, which is a more thorough inspection, looking at soil testing in different areas of the feedlot ordinance. We'll do those level 2 inspections on areas near shoreland, wetlands, or other vulnerable areas, as well as conduct level 3 land application inspections, which is more of an on-site inspecting the actual when the manure is put onto the farm fields. We'd like to inspect those on areas that are subject to citizen complaint or near towns or higher population subdivisions or areas of the county. This report also addresses different compliance strategies, owner assistance strategies, various other program requirements, registration strategies, and a lot of these areas are the same as how the report has been in the past. I will also make note that we have an annual report that we put together and is reviewed by you as the board. That'll probably come next month. It's still being reviewed by the MPCA. But the delegation agreement has been approved and signed by MPCA staff members. And pending your approval, it will be signed by the board and me as the county feedlot officer.
Okay. Any general questions at this point, or let's look for a motion? Go ahead.
Just a comment and a question. From my understanding of talking with a lot of, over the years, just the last 6 years, becoming familiar with feedlots, almost every farmer I've talked to is very concerned, or I should say, pork producer, maybe they're not farmers, I don't know, is that considered a farming?
Yeah.
But- Is it?
Agricultural?
Yeah.
Ag.
Okay. They're very concerned about how they, raise their hogs and want to produce a premium product, out of our county. But I didn't realize that when you say inspection, that we never enter a building, that our inspections do not involve any entering. So I don't know, if there's ever a concern, then that would be something the state would have to take care of. Isn't that correct? The county is not overseeing the actual internal workings of the building, so to speak, the facility. We just look for things outside the building. If there's leakage, if there's evidence of maybe overuse of fertilizers, or not fertilizers, but spreading manure or something like that, something that might be imminent danger to health or something like that.
Correct, yeah. Probably the biggest reason we stay out of the buildings is for the biosecurity risk. That is the potential to spread disease from one side to the other when we're going into the site. So when I do my inspections, my goal is to stay away from the building, 30 feet or so, just to kind of keep us surrounding around the area. But I do look for the pits, make sure everything is in good shape. There's no leakage or area of where there could be wastewater running through the barns or the pit or anything like that, just to make sure there's not a pollution hazard being created by these sites.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So what are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Second. Got a first and a second. Any other discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
report, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, we got a couple drainage items to deal with at 9:35. Morning, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Good morning.
County Ditch 56 Grant Letter of Support.
Yes, we have an opportunity to apply for funds at a information meeting with the landowners of 56. They expressed interest in us trying to apply for grants to try some unique and water treatment on the system. LCSMR has some grants funds available where we want to apply. One of the requirements is that we get a letter from the board showing their support.
Do you have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Questions, comments?
Just it's the same ditch out there, isn't it?
Yep.
There's already a grant on some other things
Yeah.
going on there.
That grant, yeah, the other grant that's already been, that is for things away from the County Ditch 56. What we're going to apply for a grant is actually changing some of the structures of County Ditch 56 directly. Yeah, and so it's a different grant for
Yeah.
kind of a little different area.
Kind of the same line lawns as some of the stuff we did on 57 over by Mapleton, or?
This one, some of the same stuff, but actually one of the things they're looking at is a little different. A little more emphasis on the treatment actually
Oh.
for reducing. In County Ditch 57, it was mainly about reducing the
Retention.
surge of the flow, and it had other benefits. Where this is, our main focus would be actually reducing the phosphorus and nitrogen would
nice.
be the main emphasis on this particular grant.
Good.
Wonderful.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
County Ditch 78 bid award.
78, yes, we opened bids on January 29th for the County Ditch 78 projects. Some points of interest here. The low bidder was Dave Holstein Excavating of Edgerton, Minnesota, with a bid of $596,861.50. That is approximately 7% under the engineer's estimate of
Hey, we like that.
$642,765. ISG, which is the engineer we use, has worked with Dave Holstein Excavating on one other project, and they performed well on that project. So they're recommending that we approve the bid and award the bid to Dave Holstein Excavating of Edgerton, Minnesota.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any other discussion?
I have to remind you that I'm abstaining from voting on this because I've
Yes, this is your- yeah.
Yep.
my farm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll take a short break. All right, we'll call our meeting back to order. And we got Human Services. Bill and Jay, good morning.
Welcome, Phil and
Good to
Jason.
see ya. It looks like Phil's got a whole pile of stuff for
Morning.
somebody to sign.
Is that why we're not having lunch? We did all this-
It's our fault.
Phil's fault.
Yeah, that's really
It's
bad.
always Phil's.
You don't want to get between the commissioners and lunch. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for hearing us today. I have several action items that I'd bring to your attention. Starting with public health, and we have two contracts under the public health unit. Medica, and this is a new contract where Blue Earth County engages with Medica for public health needs in maternal child health, nursing education, personal care, attendant services, and other things in the contract. A new healthcare provider for our county. Rates are comparable to the other managed care contracts that we hold. The term of this new contract is January 1st of 2016 through August 31st of 2016. There is an automatic renewal language in the contract for additional terms of 2 years and a termination notice of 125 days. Next item also under public health is a smaller contract for the Improved Group to help us with data analysis with the SHIP Community Health Survey. To do the analytics for this, it's a one-time contract and it's a partnership with Mayo Health System, not to exceed language, $1,200, term February 8th, 2016 through April 30th of 2016. Next section is South Central Community-Based Initiative, and the first item is for Blue Earth County to engage Sibley County to provide program coordination support for the initiative. Sibley County will fund a part-time staff person to provide program coordination, administration, fiscal analysis, assessment of needs, and liaison duties between the Joint Powers Board and the regional management team. There was a slight change in cost from 2015 at $32.07 per hour to $32.87 in 2016. It will be reimbursed 100% through Adult Initiative Grant, and the term is December 14th through December 31st of 2016. I'm sorry, December 14th of 15 through December 31st of 2016. We did lose our coordinator, and we are in a strategic planning period for the initiative, and so this is a temporary position that we've asked for, and Sibley County was good enough to stand up and help fund this and pass that through our initiative. And then we hope to, once we're done with the strategic plan and looking at fiscal host duties, do something much more permanent. Sioux Trails Mental Health Center. This is a renewal contract between Sioux Trails and Blue Earth County for medication management, diagnostic assessments, urgent care services, focused on individuals with serious and persistent mental illness. The total amount of the contract not to exceed $155,703.22 annually. Term is January 1st of 16 through December 31st of 16. Next section is supportive housing. We've gone over these contracts before. They're a little confusing in their nature because money passes from the state to our administrator, who is Hearth Connections, and then back to us again because we also provide direct care. So the first contract is the direct care contract, the provider contract, which is the local 8-county area where we have our supportive housing team to do intensive case management. It's for individuals who are homeless for a year or more, or 4 times over a 3-year period. That's the criteria used in this. It allows us the continuation of services
and funding through the Long-Term Homeless Supportive Services Fund and the Greater Minnesota Housing Grant. The total of these two together is $478,860 for our 8-county region. The term January 1st of 16 through December 31st of 16. And then the next contract is our regional project through Hearth Connections. So we contract with Hearth Connections to provide the administration and management of the 3 teams, and this is throughout the whole southern part of Minnesota. So we are fiscal host for this. We need to take the money, and this is the contract that gives it to Hearth to provide for those 3 teams. The term of this contract is January 1st of 2016 through December 31st of 2017, and the contract amount is just over $2.5 million for that southern region. And then finally, the umbrella grant, the regional grant that we get from the state, and we are the fiscal host for that entire project as well. So that brings in some of this complexity of how the money flows from one party to the next. This contract is at the same amount of the $2.5 million. The term is also the same, January 1st of 2016 through December 31st of 2017. In the narrative, I say 12-county project. It's actually, Olmsted has additional counties that they serve, so it's actually a 20-county project when you add it all up. So those are the 3 contracts related to supportive housing.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the supportive housing, would you call them renewals of the same?
It is. These are all renewals, correct.
And they've stayed pretty consistent?
They have. You know, I know I've emailed you, Commissioner, a little bit that year over year, our margins are so tight in housing that when we're short, like this year, I think we have a projected, as we look to next year's budget, of a $15,000 shortfall. Well, we literally have no place to make up the $15,000. And so, you know, sometimes it's $15,000, sometimes it's $30,000, but the whole project has really been on such a tight margin and reduced. You know, Plenty administration back to that time had this as their chief issue. And since that time, we've seen money start to dwindle. And we've had many times, Bob's been involved in this over the years as well, where we're kind of getting by on a very tight margin and wondering if we can sustain what we have. We're also at the point where we really have our staff that go out and provide this, and if we lose another staff, I think the integrity of the program would start to come into question too. So we actually have a lot to lose. I know you asked questions about federal funding. There's HUD money that we get. There's state money we get.
They have those block grant dollars that are sent to
Right.
each state, and I don't know if
That's
that's
the way
part
that
of
turns.
this.
So usually through the Minnesota Housing Agency, that they're the ones that take that block grant money. I think it gets pushed into the state coffers. The direct federal funding that we get is through HUD. So those.
We get it directly.
Yes, so that we have like a HUD number that
So
we
the
have to
state
apply
doesn't
for.
grab it.
Right, so there's 2 buckets, 2 different buckets.
And then do we have some levy dollars, you know, that go towards this at all?
Well,
You
that's
know?
one of the problems. Because it's a regional project, we try not to put levy dollars into this,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
why we really just don't have any flexibility with this. And so we've tried to live off of what the state and
Oh, I
federal
see.
funding is, and that's why it's a different kind of program, because it really is built off that platform where you zero out the budget every year, and you have to make ends meet, and that's where the struggle comes from.
So if it really got down to it, do you think it would work to have all the counties that are involved, you know, 50 cents a head or something? I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking outside the
Right.
box, you know, levy 50 cents, and then maybe that would help the offset a little bit. I don't
Right.
know, I just.
We've talked about that. We've talked about this internally. I've talked to the administrator about this as well, of trying to be, we've tried to be creative several times, and I'm concerned that because that you know, kind of edge of the cliff is right there, that also remodeling it, maybe bringing in a nonprofit to help us with this, where some of the staffing costs might be less, is another idea that we've kicked around. But yeah, we're definitely looking at modeling as well as just the whole methods that we have.
Yeah, I know it's a real issue. It's developing, getting bigger and bigger across the whole country.
And very important, yes. There's no doubt that it's infrastructure for us. So you want to look at the long-term perspective.
So the people that work in this area in supportive housing, though, they also, I mean, they have full-time wages, they have all the benefits of being a county employee.
They do, yes.
But they work full-time in supportive housing.
That's right.
And do you think levy dollars go towards their jobs, or are we?
No,
taking
so we
most-
try to cover all those costs with these buckets of money. Our supervisor is actually one that's split, so he's part-time between, well, these two categories that I'm presenting on. He's split between supportive housing, which is half of his time, and half going to child support, which is kind of an odd combination, but he does both of those for
Oh,
us. So
wow.
he's the only one that's not full-time into the program, yeah. But we cover that through these grant dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Some of the non-profits you look at, would be like someone as partners for
Yes.
affordable housing, would be one.
Right.
They're, I don't know who all, what ones are out there.
Well, you know, and you look at some of the shelters, Teresa House and Salvation Army and some of these others that are out there, there's also, because it's a regional project, I think we'd look and be creative about, you know, anybody within our catchment area, and probably in this case, it's that whole 20-county region. It's not something we really want to do, but it's one of those that if we do get cut again, or the economy does start to go the wrong way, I think we'd be forced to have a Plan B loaded up, and so we're just starting to work on some of those options.
I know just from minor involvements I've had with the community, you know, we fully depend on the Salvation Army.
Right.
I mean, they basically are our only emergency shelter that we have in this community. That's it.
Mainly for male, too.
For men.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
why
they wanted to build for women. They wanted to remodel that whole facility so they could have nice, at least decent showers, safe showers. And they even were given the option of using some grant dollars from the city, but they couldn't find enough matching dollars for the program. And I just really feel that needs to be revisited, and maybe the county and the city could work together to try to see, because we are a regional hub here, and Salvation Army, half those people down there are not from Mankato.
Right. That's right.
It's these counties that are listed right here.
That's right.
And so I just feel that we really need to revisit that and help them. If that's gonna be our shelter, we need to help them.
Right.
Just like we help Vine with different issues that help people in our community. If they're the ones taking it on for emergency shelter, and they want to develop that program, then I think they need to be nurtured by the city and the county.
Right.
Because it's gonna cost us a lot more in the long run
Right.
if there's other issues.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner, the only other thing I might add to this strategy conversation is we did do that workshop on GRH dollars for homeless folks. And that actually is a pretty significant structural shift, where some of these providers that we talked about that might want to come to town, we're a little bit, you know, cautious about any provider we don't know. But some of our providers in town that we do know are willing to expand as well. And so the philosophy of, you know, looking at the shelter capacity, which you're bringing up, which is part of the continuum, but then also saying, how do we build additional, and do we want to be facility-based, or could we go to more of a scattered site perspective? And we've talked about that in even some of the outlying parts of our county, that we look at some of those dollars, and as we build this continuum of care, that I think the shelter piece kind of on that more crisis or emergent side on the front end, but then all the way to the back end of what do we want to really see. And I think what we'd really like to see from a human services perspective is stable housing that's affordable, and we know that that's really tight with the colleges in town. That really hurts us as far as our housing stock. And so, you know, from Section 8 to all that, we see that as all one line of continuum of care. But we want to make sure the handoffs can go, and sometimes the rules that are attached to some of the monies are very prescriptive. They're not very flexible. And so I think this is a strategic question about where we want to end up. But I'm not sure that I would say that we should only look to facility-based, but also this GRH change
And
that's
that's
coming down the
wonderful.
pike. Yep.
And where are we at with that right now?
Well, I think
Phil?
we're still developing the one contract that we had that was a local provider. We're pursuing that. We're still at the front end. I think we exchanged emails on that. that we're just building that and saying yes to that provider and saying, can we do expansion? But they're still in the formation stage, so
Yeah.
we're rolling on that one.
It'd be nice to see that rolling out before next winter, because
Exactly.
I'm aware of people every week in
Right.
this community
Right.
that have no place to sleep.
Sure. Absolutely.
And-
That's a fact. Yeah.
And sometimes they get in trouble
Right.
because they're trying to find a place that's not freezing cold.
You bet.
And so they hide in bathrooms and they try to figure out where to go.
Right. Exactly.
And I just think, we talk about trying to improve our community. We've got all these subdivisions going in around the city. We're growing. But this sector of our culture is going to be here. It's not going to go away.
Right.
And I think it needs to be addressed in a more direct way with maybe collaboration with various organizations, Partners for Affordable Housing.
Yes, definitely.
What you mentioned, Phil, using those.
GRH,
Yeah,
yeah.
what do you call it?
GRH, yeah.
Yeah, they're board and care facility
Right. Board and
type.
Lodge. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Board and Lodge. And I think something's got to break a little bit more open
Sure.
for this.
Yeah.
Just, otherwise it becomes sort of a blemish, I think, on our
Right.
community.
Right. Well, there's no doubt it's weather related, and you're absolutely right about that. But even in those off months is when we could try to, do better. We want to help those people because it is a basic need
Yeah.
that they're going without.
Someplace warm.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. Child support section, couple of contracts here. The first is our umbrella agreement, cooperative agreement with DHS, and this enables us to operate the child support enforcement program. It sets forth the respective responsibilities for both the department as well as Blue Earth County in order to provide the child support enforcement under Title 4D, which is how it's written in the Social Security Act. This is a renewal agreement. There's no direct financial component to this umbrella contract. It just allows us to access the federal financial participation money, which is really a 2/3 reimbursement for our direct costs, which is very significant. Some of the best return we have on some of our costs. And the term of this agreement is January 1st of 16 through December 31st of 17. The next contract is directly related, cooperative agreement with Blue Earth County Attorney's Office, and that also includes the Sheriff's Department, and this allows us to really operate and be reimbursed by those direct services provided by both of those departments. This is also a renewal agreement. There's a 3% increase to $134,000 per year. The term is January 1st of 16 through December 31st of 16. And finally, as far as action items go, administration, I have 2 committee appointments, both coming from
Kid Runner's District.
from
Wilt.
Commissioner Purvis's district, right. The first of those, a mental health task force, Piper Timmerman will join us, resident of District 4, and then Darren Wacker also joining the Human Services Advisory Committee, Jay's committee, also a resident of District 4. So those are the action items I have for today.
They were Eagle Lake or something.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion? Questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Informational and discussion items. I have 3 slides on performance data for 3 of our particular programs. The first of those is regarding Child Care Assistance Program, and it shows a spreadsheet. I would just draw the board's attention to the increasing trend overall for eligible families throughout the months of this past year. And also, if you looked at the trend line of the costs, that's also going up somewhat from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, kind of a bit of a bubble in the middle there. We have, and then I'll maybe just do the whole thing at once here, in the bottom box, you'll see that our allocation just over $1 million. We spent just short of $900,000, 87.82% of our allocation. The good news is our communities had no waiting list for childcare. If somebody's eligible, they can get it, and that's good. We've been in many years where we do have a waiting list, and so people in need go without until we have a slot or a ability to get them eligible. And the only other thing that we can look at is that this trend is going back up, and there are communities that do have waiting lists or counties that do have waiting lists. And so I think the state has tried to reallocate some of the money. Our concern is always, again, if these numbers keep rising and we get over 100% and back to waiting lists, we don't want to lose any of our allocation. But I think overall it's good news. The next slide has the pie charts at the top, and this is regarding our licensing activities. There's really 3 areas that we do licensing: child foster care, adult foster care, and then child care, the slide we just looked at. These are all combined, this information. So you'll see in that first pie chart, we really have 2 basic reasons that we go out. One is for relicensing, which is the vast majority of those times that staff go out, over 90% of the time. And then also we do random drop-ins at times for quality assurance, and so we'll do that as well. Less than 10% of our staff activity is spent doing that. The next pie chart is how many years licensed. You'll see our providers, less than 1 year, about 6% of our licensed providers. 1 to 5 years is 13%. More than 5 years, 81%.
Wow.
Which, brings us our stability. We definitely are very interested in continual growth and that less than 1 year, those new folks that are coming and doing this mission for us. But that stability of the 81% is our critical resource. And so we're just so grateful again for all the people that are willing to do this work for our community. I won't go into all the detail, but the satisfaction survey results, you'll see the 2 highest bars, excellent and very good, are overrepresented at a pretty good rate. And there are some comments that you can look through as well. Maybe my last highlight would just be that the child foster care, we have 67 providers, child care 139, and adult foster care 113. So there's a lot of people in our community that are doing this kind of service.
But there's a lot of child care facilities that don't take those dollars though too, aren't there, Phil?
Well, sure, and it's always about qualifying as well. Some are private pay. Some employers even provide some of the cost for care.
Okay.
And then there's our folks that qualify
Yeah.
for basic sliding fee is what we call it, so.
Good.
The last slide is about children's mental health. There's a couple boxes of narrative. It talks about children's mental health case management, where we really are dealing with children with severe emotional disturbance and their families. The mission is really looking at both the family system as well as the child themselves. We look at needs for mental health, social, educational, health, vocational, and then recreational services, try to create a balance in these children's lives. Next box is case manager assesses the child's changing needs and develops a plan. Again, we work with providers and the family and really are focused on linking to other community resources. And then the last piece is monitoring the effectiveness. We kind of want to make sure that this intervention and the work we do matters. And so the case manager is also in charge of looking for progress. To the results, you'll see the first in the line of data that we had a slight increase in the caseload itself. Skipping the next one and looking at the next 3 in the middle, average caseload per worker, it's stable but high. The following one shows that the state tells us that we should target around 15. There are issues around how intense the cases are. You can sometimes have a higher caseload if the intensity isn't high, but there's no doubt that when case managers have an intense child with intense situation, that it takes an extra amount of time and attention for those particular cases. And then finally, just to highlight the requests, there was a significant jump in the number of people in the community from 83 in 2014 to 114 requests for children's mental health. So we're certainly strong and represented well in need in our community. And a lot of those referrals, of course, come directly from families and the schools. So that's really what I had for you today, Mr. Chair. Alrighty. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. Jade, your report for us today?
Chair and Commissioners, the Human Service Advisory Committee met on February 11th. We had Andrew Peach, who was a supportive housing and child support supervisor of Blue County, speak to us. He talked about housing and homelessness in the local area. He has been supervisor of the supportive housing unit for 8 counties in the regional service area. They serve those that have been homeless the longest and are the most vulnerable. Under social services, Dean Gilbertson from House of Hope spoke to the group about their chemical dependency treatment program. Trends from the last few years were reviewed, which showed an increase in screenings, assessments, and ongoing case management. The task force has taken on a service project and will ask for donations of new or gently used toys for the visitation room at the government center. Under mental health, Governor Dayton visited Mankato this month to discuss mental health needs for children and students. Kathy Oberly was a member of the task force, was at in attendance. The group listed 8 items of concern regarding children's mental health for Kathy to potentially use during the meeting with the governor. DHS is developing service standards for accredited clubhouses. A site visit by DHS will take place at the Blue County Second Step Clubhouse. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you, Jay. Any
Thanks,
questions
Jay.
for Jay? Any other questions for Phil?
I just wanted to mention the fire that happened in Medelia. We've been noticing in the papers, that's okay, he just mentioned it. It was, my wife works in Medelia, and everybody knows, been reading the paper, quite a fire on that city block down there. It just really devastated that whole area. And want to thank everybody in our community that's stepping up and helping. You know, all the different organizations, even Tony Down Foods there that's donated $100,000, and other organizations, even individuals are donating money. And Region 9, who we're familiar with, and I'm on the full commission board there, has stepped up to kind of help coordinate a lot of that. So it's kind of a Nicole, you know, who's the director, and some of the staff are, I think, acting as the fiscal host, so to speak, for those dollars, and meeting with the business owners. And that happened during a snowstorm, and it was just hard to get everybody there. And I think altogether 7 were lost, and 2 other ones were gravely affected by that fire, and they were without. So it was nice, and I saw the governor came down and visited just because of that too.
Right.
So it was, my favorite restaurant for Mexican food, just about, was the Plaza Fiesta, and that was right there. And really enjoy that Plaza Fiesta, I'm telling you. I'm gonna miss that, because Dawn and I we volunteer over there once a month, and a lot of times we stop there for lunch then afterwards, and now that's not there, so.
that's hard.
But I hope they can get that rebuilt, and our community continue to rally to help them.
Well, thank you guys for your
Thank you.
reports.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Phil.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
All right, we'll go up back to administrative services.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 4 in your packet is a memo regarding a bid that was received for replacement of the boilers at the government center. We did receive 3 bids from organizations wishing to bid on that particular project. The low bid was from Poppy Companies at $219,000, We do have $250,000 budgeted for this project, so the bid came in well under our estimated cost. And so we're recommending that the low bid be accepted for this particular project.
I'll move the bid. Acceptance.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 in your packet is an agreement with the Department of Revenue for the collection of a local transit sales and use tax. This is part of the local option sales tax that the board passed a resolution on last fall. This allows the Department of Revenue to begin the process of notifying retailers of this local option sales tax. And it does provide for the agreement that the costs associated with the collection of that tax by the state of Minnesota will be deducted from the proceeds that then are forwarded to the county for our transportation project. So this is an agreement we're bringing forward for the board's consideration to continue that project moving forward.
I move to approve. Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion item.
Go ahead.
Concern, I mean, I know somebody brought it up already, but I did look up the statute you had on there, Bob, 297A.993, and the name of that is, the title of that law is Greater Minnesota Transportation Sales and Use Tax.
That's correct.
Couldn't we just put that in there at the bottom instead?
Well, this resolution actually came from the Department of Revenue. This is the form that they've used with other counties that have implemented this local option
Okay.
sales tax.
So they decided to just keep it
that's their wording, and so,
Okay.
we haven't wanted to adjust this
No, that's fine.
because.
Well, I mean, they've got the law statute cited in
Right.
there, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm just,
I think that's accurate.
I just thought I'd bring it up.
They want the shorter word transit instead of.
Yeah, fit better
It's just-
probably.
It doesn't, yeah, I know. Okay, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 is a multi-agency law enforcement joint powers agreement. This is an agreement with the Commissioner of Public Safety through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. This is an agreement that would allow the Blue Earth County Attorney's Office to access some grant funds for training of the assistant county attorneys on internet crimes against children. So this would provide some dollars to the county attorney's office to send a staff to some specialized training in this area. And it's being recommended by the Blue Earth County attorney for approval here by the board today.
I'll also move.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion?
What was that for? Was there a total in?
The amount that we receive is not identified
That's what I
here. Actually, I think it's sort of dependent on the cost of the training.
Okay.
I just had a question, wondering, Mark Lindahl's with us today, county attorney, and I was just wondering if you had any comments about it or anything to say.
I think this is important in providing the tools to the county attorney's office for some specialized training in this area, focusing on the internet crimes against children, which it can include, possession and distribution of child pornography or solicitation of children through the internet. And, you need some special training on some computer use. It gives us some training on investigative tools, more effective ways to prosecute these kind of cases. And I think as a regional center, outlying counties look to us for some expertise. We've been looking, to the BCA and the Twin Cities for that expertise. This allows us to get the training to be able to provide that expertise locally.
Good.
Good.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 7 in your packet is the financial status report for January of 2016, being the first month of our fiscal year. There's a lot of variances that show up when you only have 1 month of data. You'll see again that our revenues are quite a bit less than our expenditures at this point, which is part of the cash flow nature of our business. So we'll see that discrepancy or that variance adjusted as the months go by. In terms of fund balance, we continue to see our fund balance remaining relatively flat, slightly decreased from prior years at this time, but generally stable. So not a lot to report at this point in terms of our financial activity.
Okay, questions or comments?
Thank you.
That's just an informational item, so I think that brings us to the end of our agenda unless I missed something, Mr. Meyer.
That's all we have for today.
All right, I will, we will be adjourning today because Mark and I actually have another commitment at noon, so.
Yeah, me and Drew have a meeting directly when we're done here.
Yes,
Oh.
we're going out to NACO end of this week.
Oh, okay.
National Association of Counties.
So
They
maybe
have
a
their
good day
their
not to have
annual
lunch.
legislative. And so Jesse Byer, Vance, Commissioner Struenberg, and myself will be flying out there.
Okay, good.
And,
Will represent us well, as you always do.
Yeah.
Say, I do have maybe a discussion. We consistently, we get the Human Services report, and we have the action items, and in most of the action items are read to us exactly what's written down. And what I'm wondering is if we could have just a straight vote on the action items unless we actually ask to have something taken out.
Don't we
know.
read those into the record for something? Is that why we read them, or is there a reason why Phil reads them?
I think it's more just to inform the board about changes within the contractual relationships that they have.
But in 99% of the time, all that's done is Phil is reading exactly what's written down. I mean, and for us, I read over the agenda anyway. It's just a repeat of what we've already read. I mean, and if there's a discussion item, like Drew had an item today, that can be pulled out and say, we want to discuss this. And, you know, Phil will be here anyway, but I'm just wondering why we're taking that extra half an hour of time just to read over I mean, we all can read well, and to read over what's already written down.
I don't know,
Well, maybe Bob could visit with Phil about it and see if there's some other
Shorten it. I
reasons.
mean,
and-
maybe we could shorten it a little bit somehow.
I don't think-
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, going on my past as being on the city council in Mankato is we had many of those items
know.
that, unless a city councilman wanted to pull something out,
Yeah.
and then we discussed that. I mean, it's not going to take away anything. If
Right.
we are concerned about a certain issue,
Yeah.
we have the ability to do it. But I'm just saying, it's kind of redundant
Like that
and
paragraph.
time-consuming to read over 8 or 9 items that we already read before.
I don't know, I kinda like to.
I don't have a problem with listening to Phil reiterate it.
Well,
I really
I'm
don't.
just,
because there's so
that's why I
many-
said it's just a discussion
Yeah.
item.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's so many programs all the
I'm
time.
going to be
keep
here
track.
anyway. It's not like it's one way or the other, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
what-
but to me, there's so many programs to keep track of, and this is you know, you're dealing with a lot of human services in different areas all the time. I kinda like to have that.
Well, the thing is, with
And-
some of these,
and
if you look at.
we're done before lunch anyway.
Some of them are, you know, over $1 million programs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
That's a lot,
expensive,
yeah.
but yeah, they're,
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
That's
I
what I said. I'm
understand,
not
yeah.
saying we can't pull those out.
right. Highlight them or something, or.
You know, I mean, we
Yeah.
certainly have that ability to say, okay, hey, I want to pull this
We'll
one
probably
out.
get more discussion
But
items
I'm-
then.
Would very much.
You might.
You might, I kinda, to me, it helps just because it might bring something up if I see it
An
again,
understanding.
even if I read it
Okay.
before. I don't know, to me,
I'm
it just.
Just thought it'd be a good
I
point.
can say, having done that particular job in the past, there's a lot more information behind the scenes than what is presented here. You know,
Absolutely.
it's a matter of how
Guaranteed.
much information does the board need and want, and how do we
Absolutely.
provide that? And we certainly can have
Yeah.
continued discussions
I
about
just
what
thought
is the
it'd be
best way to present
Something
that.
to think about.
Or it
All
could
right.
be even shortened more, maybe, you know, the same paragraph could be cut in half. But, I suppose some of it too, it goes between what we wanna know and maybe what the public wants to know too. Presenting packets and presenting all that kind of thing, and if there's people listening, you know.
Well, I
don't
want it
know.
all written down on the packet.
Yeah, that's true.
That's there.
They
I
can
don't
find
want
it
that, I
online.
don't want the public to
You
be
just
taken away.
didn't want it
I
necessarily
just-
read, but
Yeah,
It's,
I understand, well point.
it's kind of like going to a classroom where, you know, you have a PowerPoint up and the speaker reads the PowerPoint. You know, that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's kind of like, yeah, I can read that myself. Okay.
Good point. Board chair likes the way it is now, so we'll continue that way, Tom. Any other
Thank you, Mr.
discussion?
Chair.
All right, the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a first and second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.